am yet again with an unfinished face of makeup. And as you're looking at my face, you'll see, okay, I've got lipstick on, I've got my eyes done, my brows are done, half of my face looks mattified, but what are we missing? We have no color on our cheeks and no shape. Because we did such a good job with our concealing and our foundation, I now look like I'm basically one tone from top to bottom on my face. So now we get the opportunity to do one of my favorite steps, and that is contouring and highlighting the face. So part of the reason why you're seeing a mattified side and a more glowy side is because I want to show you both powder and cream products for each of these next two videos. Now, some people just prefer cream over powder or powder over cream. I am personally one that believes that even if you have dry skin, you can still use powder products. And if you're an oily skin girl, you can still use cream products. So my goal today is just to show you both application processes. And of course, as before, I will list in the description box below several of my favorite products for both powder and cream. But then you can decide what you feel like would be easier for you or fit better into your routine. So let's start off with what contouring and highlighting is. I'm going to talk about those concepts together because I feel like they go together. So contouring is where you add shadows to the face and to the areas that you want to recede. Highlighting is where you add lightness and brightness to the areas of your face that you want to bring out or bring forward. Now, for every person, those areas are different, and it also depends on not only your preferences, but your shape of your face. So I have actually more of a round face, believe it or not. Some of you are like, oh, you have more of a skinny face, that's why you can do short hair. But no, it is the magic of contouring that I think really helps me pull off short hair. Now, contours are different than bronzers, and I'll show you some side-by-side comparisons. We are going to add bronzer at the end of this video, but you will hear people use those terms interchangeably on products themselves. One will be called a bronzer when it's actually more of a contour, and then it'll be called a contour when it's more of a bronzer. How do you know the difference? So a contour, think about that shadow that we're adding. A shadow, the contour on your face should not be a noticeable added big color change. So you're not using contour to add color, you're using contour for that recession on the face. Now, before we get started contouring, we need to actually choose our contour shade. How do we do that? Well, first of all, you're going to look for a formula that is not only cooler in tone, this is the Lorac Pro Contour Palette, but you also want to look for one that has zero shimmer, no shine, because you're going to be placing this in areas like the hollows of the cheek, around the edge of your face, along your jawline, and you don't want shimmer and sparkle there. So matte finish is important, but also that cooler tone. So you can see these have a more gray base, but they're not overly so, versus this is the Jaclyn Hill bronzer. This actually is matte, but do you see the difference in tone? So if I were to put this under in the areas where I'm going to contour, it's going to make that contour look really unnatural. Now, just like in powder form, there are also cream bronzers and contours. And my favorite contour, cream contour, is still this one from NARS. This is the Laguna Cream Bronzer, but this is a contour shade. How do I know? Because do you see how gray based that is? So I'm going to start off. Let's go ahead and add this to one side of my face. My favorite brush is the 107 from BK Beauty. I did discover a very similar shaped brush from Real Techniques recently. This is the tapered cheek brush. This is also very similarly shaped, a little smaller, but why I like this is you can see it kind of comes to a point here, and that allows you to place the product, but it's also rounded on the edge. A lot of times the old contour brushes were straight and long, and you would get this line here, and that's all well and good when you're doing really dramatic contouring for film or stage, but in real life, if you have a harsh stop and start of that contour line, it's going to look very unnatural. So a brush like this that has a slightly rounded edge on either side of it works great because you can place the majority of the product where you need it and then softly blend out the edges. Let me show you. So I am going to just dip. I'm pouncing my brush in the tip. You can see I have it there. And one of the reasons why I love this contour so much is it is so easy to blend. All right, so with my face shape, the areas I want to contour, I want to thin out the cheeks. So I'm not going straight this way. I'm going at an angle from the top of the ear, kind of following my sideburns down, because that is going to help elongate the face. It's going to give me more of an oval shape to my face, and it's going to highlight my cheekbones. Then I'll take the brush, and I don't have an overly large forehead, but I do have a good size forehead. So I'm going to place a little bit of contour here along the hairline, and that's going to help visually shorten my forehead. If you already have a short forehead, you do not need to contour your forehead. You may add some bronzer there, but you do not want to add contour because that will shorten your forehead more. Okay, so we've got some shape there. I've not blended this out yet, don't worry. And then I'm going to place some right here along the jaw. And again, I'm using a big brush because I'm doing this for real life contouring. I've seen so many videos that people try to follow in real life of contouring for stage or for camera. So be careful when you're watching those kinds of videos and pay attention to the purpose of that contouring, because on camera, intense contouring looks amazing, but in person, it does not look so good. So using a slightly fluffier brush and diffusing the contour along the way is going to give you a much more natural look in person. So if you have extra fluff under your chin, some of you laugh when I say that, you can just add a little bit under your chin there. And again, we're going for a shadow. So do you see, it's kind of already given me a smaller jawline than over here. Do you see how big my jawline is over here versus over here? We have the illusion that it cuts up just a little more. And I have this section right here that actually comes out more. And so I can add a little contour there. Again, I haven't blended out yet, don't worry. And then for nose contouring, this is something that some people say, no, I'm never doing it. And other people do it to the extreme. I'm going to show you the in-between because that's what I like to do. Now, I love to do nose contour because I have a crooked nose, and I'm going to do a whole video on this. So I won't go into tons more detail about how to straighten your nose, but my nose goes this way. So if I contour to slim my nose and I follow my nose like this, it's just going to accentuate the crookedness of my nose. So instead, I'm going to take this Real Techniques. This is a concealer brush. I have put a little bit of my contour on there. And what I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to bring the contour up. So I'm going from kind of I'm curving in here towards the eye. And then I'm going to go here, and I don't do a whole lot with the tip of my nose. I think in person that can look really unnatural. So there we go. Okay. So you can see it already is giving the illusion that my nose goes this way. So we've adjusted the shadow. Okay. Now we're not going to leave it like this, obviously. So with the unblended contour, hopefully you can kind of see where we're going with this. I'm going to go ahead now and blend out the cheek because I stopped a little bit further back. You want to be careful not to bring this too far in. They say really kind of the outer edge of your eye is about where you want to stop, and then you can blend it in slightly. If you go all the way to the side of your mouth, in person, that is going to look very unnatural. So use what's there. And again, this cream contour is so forgiving and easy to blend that you can actually let it sit on your face for a few minutes and then go back and blend it in. Some cream contours are not that forgiving, so you need to make sure you know what your formula is that you're working with. All right, so just from side to side, hopefully you can see that shadow there, and you can see from the front, my cheek looks, my cheekbone looks higher and more lifted. The cheek looks slimmer. And now on our nose, I'm just going to gently blend this out. You can also blend it out with your finger. And then you can take your foundation brush if you feel like you need to, and you can just kind of blend over that. But I feel like I got a pretty good blend there. Okay, so no contour, contour. All right, looks very nice and seamless. Again, you can keep your foundation brush out. You can use that if you feel like you get a little carried away on your jawline. And as I was blending out, you saw I was going up, up, not down. Okay, we don't want to give ourselves a beard, especially because this is a cooler tone. All right, let's go on the side with powder. So for powder, I'm just going to go into this Lorac Pro palette, and I'm using one of my new favorite brushes. This is the Rougher 05 brush. I think this is actually the blush brush, but again, it has that similar shape. I was pulling out my brushes realizing this is just become my favorite shape for contouring because I can do the same concept with this as with the cream. So what I mean by that, I'm going to go in with, this is the medium contour shade, and I'm just going to tap my brush, tap off the excess, and just like before, I'm just going to pat into the hollows of the cheek. I'm starting at my sideburn because where you place your brush is where you're going to get the most pigment first. So you don't want to start your brush here because you're going to end up with a big old blob right there. And we don't want our contour too far into our face. So I'm just patting, patting, patting. And I think that's also why I love this shape of brush, because I feel like many people find that contour, bronzer, blush, starts moving their foundation underneath. And sometimes it's just because of all the swirling we're doing on top of our makeup. So tap, place, tap, and then I am working up towards the hairline here. And just like I did on this side, I'm going to blend a little bit of contour here. Hopefully these shades kind of end up matching. I might need to add a little bit of the dark shade in. We'll see. These are going to look different because this is my glowy side right now, but hang with me here. And then same thing, I'm going to take that brush along the back of the ear. So what this is doing is this is kind of shortening kind of this space and blending it in so that I can reshape my jawline here. Now, oddly enough, the brush that comes with this palette from Lorac is this brush. And do you see it is thinner, obviously, but again, it has that rounded edge. So I don't know, I've had this brush forever. So I think that I'm onto something with that concept of a rounder edge, but I'm gonna go in now on my nose contour. Sometimes I'll go in with the lighter shade if I've done the medium, but for now, because I did layer on, I have a little darker tan. I just like to tap both edges and then I'll tap off the extra on my tissue. And then for this side, I actually want to bring the side of the nose this direction. Again, because I am correcting the shape of my nose, straightening it out. Do you see that? So I'm angling this here and creating just a little more of a shadow on the side. And then it's real important to also make sure you blend that down. All right, so we have our cheeks chiseled. My forehead has some shape and color to it. And now we're gonna go to highlighter next, because some people just hate the whole concept of contouring and they say, can't I just highlight? Yes, you can actually create the illusion of contoured face by doing the opposite and just adding highlighter to your face. So I'm going to use this Real Techniques brush and I'm going to do a combination. I think I need to do I'll stick with the yellow version here. Let's go into here. Now, what I do love about this palette is the formulation of these powders is very smooth, and these actually have quite a lot of pigmentation. So when you apply these, you can actually see a difference. All right, I'm just going to put a little bit of this on the top of the nose. And then I'll add a little bit of this cream shade. Highlighting, you want to go 1 to 2 shades lighter if you're using a matte highlighter. You can use the matte highlighters on the high points of the face that you want to bring forth. So for me, I like to highlight the tops of my cheekbones, the bridge of my nose. The Cupid's bow is an age-old trick to make the upper lip look a little more pouty. You can also kind of highlight the center of the forehead. I don't do a lot of that because I don't like to add too many layers of makeup. So you'll see people, you know, add cream highlighter up here and all through here and over here. And I just find that to be sometimes too many layers for me personally. So again, you can use highlighter in place of contouring or in addition to. So I'm going to show you how I prefer to highlight. So I love to use a glowy or a shimmery highlight, but don't let that scare you. If you have mature skin and you want a cream or liquid highlighter, two of my favorites are the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter and the e.l.f. Halo Glow Filter. And both of these have similarities. I feel like the e.l.f. one is a little less glowy, but a little more blurring. The Charlotte Tilbury has a little more glow. Both of these come in multiple colors. There are no shimmer particles or anything. A couple of powder options that are similar. This is the one actually I'm going to use today is the Laura Mercier. This is just a travel size. The Matte Radiance Highlight 01. This also comes in several shades. Just slight difference between this and the powders in the Lorac palette is this has a little bit of glow. Similarly, Laura Geller also has several different highlighter shades that are very similar formulation, different tones, but you can see it just adds glow and light without adding shimmer or a metallic finish. Now, when you hear the word metallic finish, let me just show you kind of the exact opposite of both of those powder highlighters, and that would be this one from Ofra. This, I personally love highlighters like this too. These still have a place in my makeup collection, but I know for a lot of you, it doesn't. So do you see how metallic-y this is? But this doesn't have huge chunks of glitter. So I can still get away with this with a light application. Again, I'll show you where I like to apply them, but this is for those of you that actually want more shine on your cheeks. That is a beautiful one. I'll list more down below. All right, let's start off though. Let's go ahead, we'll start with the cream side. Let's apply the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I recently talked about this as being a better option than their new tube highlighters that they came out with, the ones, or the beauty wands, I should say. And I'm just going to apply this to the top of my cheeks. I'll put a little bit here on, actually, I'll just do both. This is the Cupid's bow, in case you don't know. And again, I already kind of added that. I'll add powder highlight to the bridge of the nose because I'm more oily. I like to do a powder highlight on my nose. So similar thing, all we're going to do now is just tap this in. You can use your fingers, but I find that takes longer. So I like to use either a flat brush like this is the BK Beauty 113, or this one, which is fabulous from BK Beauty, the 109, just a smaller version of the foundation brush that I love so much. Let's go ahead and we're going to use that one today. And what you want to do, again, you don't want to disturb all of the makeup you have going on underneath. So I'm just going to pat that on. And because of my face shape, I want my highlighter to go up and kind of curve around my eye there. And as you turn, the light catches it. Therefore, that is how highlighter, it's catching the light. It's on the high points of the face that catches the light. There we go. And then do you see on the lip? It's kind of fun. I don't do this real extremely, but you can if you want to. Okay, so there is our liquid highlight applied. Now, just like we've talked about, matte finish is going to highlight texture less. Now, this doesn't have any shimmer, so you're not going to have glitter sticking in your wrinkles, but for some, this might still be just a little too shiny or shimmery. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to do the right side, and I am going to go ahead, let's use the Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Highlight 01, and I'm going to use my favorite brush. This is the MAC 140 brush, fan brush, and as I put this on, Even though this isn't as glowy as over here, you can still see a good amount of light as the light catches, but it's just softer. So this is a great option for kind of everyday highlighting, or if you really have a lot of texture or a lot of wrinkles that you're really concerned about, this is a great one. And because I've already powdered on this side, I know that once I powder this down, it's going to probably pretty well match over here. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit and brush over the top, the bridge of my nose. I'm not going to highlight the tip of my nose. Why not? Because when you highlight the tip of your nose, it brings it forward, draws light there, which makes your nose look longer. So if you have a shorter nose that you want to look like it has a little more length, you're gonna want to go ahead and highlight the tip. Or if you have a smaller nose and you want to make it, bring it forth a little bit, go ahead and highlight there, but I don't need to do that. I'm well aware. So I am going to leave my highlight on my nose just to the bridge of the nose. And there you go, we're all highlighted. So now let's go into the third component of this video, and that's talking about bronzer. So as I showed initially, kind of the difference in color, not every person's bronzer is going to be the same color. So just like with contour, there can be different depths of color and different levels of gray versus slightly, maybe a little more brown. Like for me, because I have a little more tan right now, this Milk Makeup contour stick is actually a little too gray for me, but it works great when I have less sunless tanner on. Likewise, for bronzer, not only the depth of color, but also the tone of colors. So if you have more rosy undertones to your skin, and if you think about what a tan would look like if you got one, generally your tan is going to have more reddish tones to it rather than being more yellow. For me, because I have more yellow undertones, my tan, if I were to ever get one again out in the sun, it would look a little more yellow based or bronze, kind of golden based. Now, the purpose of bronzer, truly a real bronzer, is to make your skin look like you have a healthy glow from time you spent outside. But hopefully most of us are wearing our sunscreen and all of that, so we're not getting a lot of that naturally, but this is the way to kind of fake that. So the difference between a bronzer and a contour is not only the shade, but sometimes the finish. This is where you can add a little bit of a glow. Personally, I do love a bronzer that has just a slight little bit maybe of a satin finish, but not always, especially in the summer when it's really hot. I don't want to look like I've got too much oil going on my face. So one of my all-time favorites is the one from Gucci. And this bronzer is just one of the most forgiving bronzers. It does have just a hint of maybe a satin matte finish, but it's mostly matte. Now, just as before, I will list in the description box some more of my favorites, but I'm going to, for today's application, use my current top absolute favorite from Gucci, and I'm going to use the BK Beauty 103 brush. So where do we put bronzer? Again, I'm only going to do this on the right side. I'll do a cream over here. Where do we put bronzer? We put bronzer where the sun would first burn your face or hit your face. That sounds terrible, but think about the high points of your face. So your forehead right here, this is where the sun is going to get more intense first. Obviously on your nose, but I don't bronze my nose much. The tops of your cheeks, and you can even do a little bit of your chin. Okay, let's go ahead and do that on just the right side of my face. And again, where you put your brush is where most of the product's going to land first. So I like to start back here and just lightly tap on the top of the cheeks. Then brush around. I know a lot of people talk about the 3 or the backwards 3. You can do that. I just think about it in smaller sections, like this curve, and then I actually don't usually do a whole lot of blending this way, but. So do you see the difference? I mean, obviously we have a little more glow here, but this just looks a little more seamless. I personally love how a bronzer can help blend the contour and everything into the rest of your tone of your face. For cream bronzer, this is a relatively new one, but I'm going to use it just to show you a different application technique. So this is the LYS, and I think it's called actually the contour stick, but this is in the shade Harmony. Now this is so pigmented. if you swipe this directly on your face, you'll be blending for days. So I'm actually going to just put a couple swipes of this on the back of my hand. And again, this one I can get away with contour because it has a slight little bit of coolness, but it has enough warmth that I feel like I can use it for bronzer too. So I'm gonna go back to the BK Beauty 107 brush, and I'm just going to work it into the skin and then lightly tap on the top of the cheeks. Actually, I think I'm going to switch over to this Mario. This is the Soft Sculpt Skin Enhancer in medium. I feel like this one gives me a little more, yeah, this one has just a little more of a kind of yellow tan that LYS still had just a little too much coolness, I feel like. So this is another great one that comes in multiple shades. And even though it is a cream, it is actually has a blurring effect on the skin. So there we go. We have the cream side, we have the powder side, but both sides, hopefully you can see a really good definition to the cheeks and highlighter. And now all we need is some blush.